Hey everybody, it's your host Richard Milligan. Man, I'm laughing because I have a lot of love for you. And the reason why I know that is because this is take 3 of the video portion of my podcast. Like, there's something about video, if you do it wrong, and there's all kinds of variables here that you have to be in tune with. Like, I record this part here on an iPhone 10 because it's got the 4K video capabilities. And as part of that, if the battery's running low, guess what? I've got to start all over with recording, but there's other variables to that. Some of those variables are like having apps on with notifications that can actually interrupt the video, having text messages come through that interrupt the video, having a phone call come through that might interrupt a video. And so, man, I am starting over. I just want you to feel the enormous amount of love coming to you through this video, because I have gotten about 15 minutes into this podcast. I cut it off and I'm back in minute 1 with you as a video, and we're going to record this podcast live in take 3, I think this is. So here's what we're going to talk about today. All that being said, we're going to talk about a question. I'm going to answer a question someone recently asked me, which was, what are the best recruiters doing today? And so we're going to talk about what I'm seeing the best recruiters are doing. It's going to be a tactics conversation. I'm a systems recruiter. Yes, I love tactics. I'm a marketer at heart. I'm an old sales guy at heart. I cut my teeth on this sales in a cold call environment. So I am very passionate about this tactics idea. I love the idea of good scripting. I love the idea of how do we close? Like, how do we get someone to respond? Right? Like, setting 9 appointments to a cool LinkedIn message, right? Like, talking about things like that. Man, I am all in on that because that gets my heart palpitating. I get really excited about it. But I am at a very deep level today. I get really serious and I can really tone down my energy when we start to talk about systems. And the reason why is because, look, there are so many people today that are winners that are losing. And I mean that. There's so many people that are winners today that are losing. And when I say that, here's what I mean. They have the intangibles. They're hardworking. They're persevering. They're tenacious. Okay? They've got high integrity, like loaded with character and all the traits they need to be successful. And why are they not winning? The reason why they're not winning is because they don't have a system. Like, it doesn't surprise me because I see it consistently, but at some level, I'm still blown away where in the day-to-day, I come across someone new in my coaching and they're working from a notepad, or they're working from Outlook, or they're working from an Excel spreadsheet. Technology today is readily available for a minimal amount of money, less than a couple $100s a month, and you can have 7 to 10 technology pieces that will actually help and influence what you're doing on the recruiting side, and you don't need a company to move you towards this, right? Software is available to the individual. It's how I started in 2014, was going out and getting my own software, where I was with a company that didn't have a larger recruiting system, and I took ownership of this. You can take ownership of this too. And so there's a part of me that I can get really passionate about this system part, because there's too many of you that aren't winning, that are doing the right things, that are establishing goals, and doing the things that you believe are right. You don't know what you don't know until you know it. And if you wait too long, it'll be too late. Okay? So part of this podcast, part of my desire in all this podcasting is this: to educate the people in industries that have very little recruiting coaching or support or information. Most organizations are not teaching you these things. And so systems is what it's all about. But I can get really excited about tactics, and so we're going to talk today about what are the best recruiters doing. So we're going to go to our podcast, and we're going to go live here in 3, and 2, and 1. Hi everybody, welcome back to another Recruiting Conversations. It's your host, Richard Milligan, and we're going to talk about tactics today. How's that? Like, you're like, no, Richard, you're a systems-based recruiter, right? And I am. I'm a systems-based recruiter, in a world where a lot of people simply want to know what are the best tactics, what's the best phone script, what's the best direct message I should be using on LinkedIn, like how do I, text message with people and get people to engage and respond, how do I cut through to people on the phone. It's like we're most interested in tactics, and so we tend to lean into these ideas. In fact, what I would tell you is this, I know how to get more people to listen to my podcast. I can talk about scripting. One of my most listened to podcasts is my phone scripting podcast, and I don't mean just like kind of. It's like, up there with my top 3, which a lot of times is a 30 to 40% more listener rate than the others. And I think some of that's because some of you may be repeating it and trying to ingrain it because you get that repetition is the mother of all learning. And so I get that part of it. But here's the reason why I believe at a basic foundational level why we love tactics. We love tactics because we all want a shortcut to success. Yes or yes? I mean, I want a shortcut to success. It's the reason why I went through P90X, right? It's like I want 90 days to the body I love. I don't want to have to put in 3 years, right? I don't want to have to do this forever. Like let's shortcut this thing. Let's get to a place where I'm way ahead of where I am today in a short window of time, and we think tactics are going to get us there. We think that script that's going to engage the 9 people, right, that's going to set 9 appointments is going to be what we need, but it's not, okay? And one of the things that I know is this, that this audience, the people listening to this audience, look, you wouldn't be listening to this, you wouldn't be trying to grow your skill set unless you were serious about your craft. So immediately I know this audience here has the intangibles to be successful. So the question is, why is the majority of this audience here not hitting the goals that they set, not accomplishing the things that they want to accomplish? And the reason why is that we're most intrigued by the tactics, we're less intrigued by the system. So here's what I know. Like I talk over and over again to people, and when someone comes into an initial interview with me in a coaching, I in session 1, what I do is I really get to know them and I find out what they're currently doing, right? Because it's like, working with a golfer that's been playing for 15 years, you got to look at the swing so that you know where to make adjustments. And when I ask the question, do you have any established goals? I always get that answered yes, and I always hear what those are. But on the flip side of that, when people discuss whether they're accomplishing those goals, whether they're going to achieve those goals, it's very rare that someone is. So why would someone pay for coaching, come into coaching, that I would look at and say has all the intangibles? Why would that person not be able to accomplish their goals? Well, it's because the goal is separate from the system, right? The goal is the intrinsic desire. It's this burning, this burning desire inside of us that's motivating us towards becoming better, motivating towards us, accomplishing something significant in our life. And we think that the goal is the driver for that, and the goal is not the driver for that. Your system is. Okay, so I put that out there in front of you today. Just say, look, I'm going to answer a question to you that I got asked recently, which is, like, what are the best recruiters doing today? I'm going to give you some tactics, okay? But don't get confused. The tactics fall into the system, okay? The tactics are not the system. So when I give you a tactic like, we'll talk about, the need to understand a value equation today. What's your value equation? What are some of the things that you can do to actually create a value equation? Those will be some tactical things, and it will be real easy for you to go, oh, I'll do that. I'll move towards that. But in the end, it needs to fall within a system, a larger system, okay? Now, technology today, for a couple $100, you can go create a phenomenal system, okay? I use Pipedrive. Pipedrive is $29 a month. I built my original whiteboard next step system in Pipedrive. In fact, today, when I'm coaching individual recruiting leaders, you know what I teach them? I teach them Pipedrive. Why? Because it's easy to use. It's a whiteboard tool. I understand it. My team understands it extremely well. So there's also that reason. But it's part of the first step towards moving towards a system. Okay? So with that said, let's jump off into answering this question. Okay? Because I can get off into the systems thing and go way deep into it, because it breaks my heart to see great people that are talented, that are driven, not winning, but I want to make sure that you understand that your system is going to determine your success. Okay, so with that said, what are the best recruiters doing today? Look, I've broken this down into 3 things, okay? Number 1, they're using technology to the fullest. Okay, so if you listen to podcast 31, one of the things that we talked about is those tools, some of those tools that people are using, that we're teaching, that we're coaching to, that actually allow you to maximize what you're doing. Did you know yesterday, like think about this, yesterday, I came into my office and in about 2 minutes went to LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, created a search criteria for some people that I was seeking to get in front of. It was 414 people, I think was the exact number. And in about 30 seconds, I had those 414 people that had a message from me, that was a message that included every single one of their first names, that included a very specific message that I wanted them to get. And this whole thing that I'm talking about here took me about 2 minutes to do. Most people would spend all day getting in front of those 414 people. I spent 2 minutes. Why? Because I'm using technology to the fullest. Okay? So what I'm seeing is that exponentially the best recruiters are increasing their ability to connect with people. So I laugh at times when I hear of leaders saying, we're going to do a calling hour, power hour, whatever you want to call it. I kind of laugh at that because it's the wrong mindset. It's the right mindset, the wrong approach. That's a better way to say it. It's the right mindset, wrong approach, right? Like having someone who's a recruiting leader. Now, recruiting leader to me is someone that's leading a team at some level while also being responsible for recruiting that team. That person's time is extremely valuable. I mean, we're talking about on the low end, hundreds of dollars per hour valuable. And if you're at the top end of what you do, you're worth thousands of dollars per hour. And now I'm saying we're going to actually put you on the phone, have you smiling and dialing in order to get in front of people. It is a poor use of your time. It is not the best use of the times you have available. So it's the right mindset that yes, we need to increase the number of people we're connecting to, but from a tactical perspective, it's an awful approach, right? Like the 9% of people answer the phone today, right? If you're just smiling and dialing and you're not qualifying, like you don't know that this person fits into whatever that model is, that is your pre-qualifying model for who you're going after. Like, look, I want someone that's, from the mortgage industry, it's $1 million producer that's got an average tenure of 3 years or more where they are. Immediately start with that, and I eliminate a whole lot of people from who I'm going to go recruit. And that may not be who you are. You may say it's somebody else, and that's okay, but you've got to identify that first before you start smiling and dialing, right? So using technology to the fullest, what does it do? Well, it widens this pipeline where most recruiting leaders can only map out 50 to 100 people is about max. Okay? Look, I can go hit thousands of people. I can go hit thousands of people every single week, and I can do it in my sweet spot, not spamming them, doing it as though my messaging is going directly to them, to the audience of one. Okay, and how am I going to do that? I'm going to max out technology. I'm going to max out artificial intelligence, my ability to get my hands on data, right? And then I'm going to find things like these Chrome browser plugins that are absolutely, must-haves for what you're doing, okay? So that's the first thing that they're doing. They're maxing out technology. The second part that they're doing is this. They have a defined system and a defined process that they're following, okay? They have a defined system and a defined process that they're following. Now, a lot of recruiting tends to end up in the one-offs, right? So like everybody tends to be at a different place in their career. Lots of times you find that people are willing to move to different next steps, like, incorporating the entire team and what happens next. A lot of times that happens in one-offs, but you gotta have a defined system in terms of the 3 major categories. How are you gonna identify talent? How are you going to make initial contact? And how are you going to follow up? And then you got to have a way of capturing all that in some form of a CRM that gives you at least some minimal automation in terms of your workflow. Okay? So one of the reasons why I lean into technology is because I can do all that very quickly in a couple of tools, I can have a defined system, a defined process that I'm following, and I can incorporate technology and very easily get in front of thousands of people every single week, where most recruiting leaders who are leading a team might get in front of 25, max get in front of 25. Okay? The third component to this is these people who are the best recruiters today understand social media. They understand social media well enough to teach it. There's a difference, right? Understanding something well enough. I understand cooking well enough. Okay, like if you ask my kids, and you ask them what are some of Dad's best meals cooked, they probably say hot dogs and mac and cheese, right? Or chicken nuggets in the oven, or whatever that is, right? But if you only understand social media at that level, like I understand cooking well enough, okay, you're not at a place where you're going to make it to being the best recruiter today. You have to understand it well enough to teach it. There's all kinds of resources. You and I live in a day and age where we are surrounded by resources. You can figure anything out by simply Googling it. The second largest search engine where there's actually video on everything is YouTube, right? So if you're willing to invest 20 to 40 hours into something, guess what? You can learn it. I don't care what it is. I don't know how to weld, but thanks to Google and YouTube, I could figure out welding if I wanted to, and probably 20 to 40 hours, at least well enough, right? So, but you got to understand social media. You got to understand it at a next level, which is well enough to be able to teach it. And if you'll do that, guess what? It will actually equate to having a strong social leadership brand. Okay? Those are the three things. They understand technology to the fullest. They have a defined system and process that they're following, and then they understand social media well enough to teach it, which equals them having a strong social leadership brand. Okay? Those are at the very top, those three things. Now, let me get off into some specifics, because I do think there are some specific characteristics that matter in those three things. Here's what I know. The best recruiters think like farmers first. Okay, look, I'm an old business-to-business sales guy. It's how I got into having a real career. My first real career was an outside salesperson as an account executive for a Fortune 500 company where we were pursuing businesses, okay? So look, I love to hunt. Now, I figuratively love to hunt, but I'm also an outdoorsman, so I love to hunt, okay? But understanding that the best hunting comes from being willing to farm first. Okay? You have to think like a farmer first. What do farmers think like? Like, farmers are patient. Okay? Like farmers are willing to plant seeds, okay, and wait for the next season, right? Because there's two distinct seasons, sowing and reaping, right? And so in between there's a lot of waiting, right? Doing the right things, right? That's how a farmer thinks. A farmer understands, like, if they plant a crop and weeds pop up, they've got to spray it with herbicides. If insects end up coming, into their crop, they got to spray it with pesticides. And so, maybe I know a little too much since I'm an old farm boy from Oklahoma, but you've got to think like a farmer first. You've got to be willing to invest in planting the seed and then being patient and waiting for the harvest. Okay, so what does that mean? It means you've got to be willing to give more than you receive as you're building relationships. Okay, you hear me from time to time, inserting the terminology relationship building over recruiting, right? If you're relationship building, great relationship builders give more than they receive. Okay, so think like a farmer first. The other thing that best recruiters are today is that they are more like a dog than they are a cat. Now, like, I love animals, okay? So no, I'm not picking sides here. If you're a cat person, that's fine, right? If you're a dog person, that's fine. But here's what I know, because I've had both animals before. Dogs, if you accidentally shut their head in the door, as they're coming in and out of the backyard, like, they're just immediately over it, right? Not a big deal, master. Like, I'm licking you, I'm happy, right? Yeah, I'm still hurting a little bit, but it's not a big deal, master. Let's get past this. If you accidentally shut a cat's tail in the door, like, that cat literally doesn't forgive you for a week. And maybe I've just had the wrong cats in my life, but one of the things I know about dogs is that like they're just happier go lucky, right, than a cat is. They're willing to move past these things very quickly. You know, great recruiters have very short-term memory. That's what a dog has, right? Like something bad happened to it, I'm over it now. You know, a cat has a long-term memory, it remembers everything, right? And so it'll be mad at you forever because of something you did like 3, 4, or 5 weeks ago. So when we get hung up on, we act like a dog. When someone treats us rudely, we act like a dog. When someone says that you're not welcome to send me any more text messages or DM me on LinkedIn anymore with these things of value that you're trying to send to me, or I hate your company has a bad brand in our market, or whatever it is, whatever, right? It's like, whatever, dude. Like, I'm moving on. I'm gonna act like a dog in this. I'm not gonna actually sit around like a cat. And the reason why is that those that are willing to actually respond with short-term memory loss, okay, and move on to the next one, that's mindset, is what that is, right? The best recruiters today have a strong mindset, right? So there's some humor in this, like, yeah, dog over cat, but at the end of the day, this comes down to us as recruiting leaders and recruiters having a strong mindset, right? Like, I'm over it, I'm moving on as soon as it happens, right? Okay, so the best recruiters today, they act like a dog over acting like a cat. Another thing that's true about the best recruiters today is this. I do believe this. I think that 10, 15, 20 years ago, you could have been a great recruiter and have been classified as a good checker player, right? But I think today, the best recruiters are more like chess players. What does that mean? It means that they're strategists, right? It's like if you play checkers, like I played checkers, I've got some younger kids, so I've got 6, 9, 12, I also have a 17-year-old, but if I'm playing checkers with my 6-year-old, like I can actually play checkers with her, right? And she's not too shabby at it. Like it's like playing, tic-tac-toe with her. If I take my eyes off of the sheet just for a second, I'll lose, even if she's 6 years old, right? So it takes minimal strategy to play those games. 15, 20 years ago, I think that was very true about recruiting. Here's what I know today. The best recruiters are strategists. They play chess. Like a great chess player. Like when I was growing up, we had a Filipino missionary that came and stayed with us for, it was like several years that he came and stayed with us off and on. And this guy was a phenomenal chess player. And I was probably 10, 11 years old at the time. And so I begged him to teach me how to play. And he didn't just play me, he actually taught me how to play. And one of the things that I learned was, how do you start thinking ahead, right? And you get to this place where you can think 3 steps ahead, or 5 ahead, or 9 ahead. And at some level, I could seriously map out 20, 30 different moves ahead. I think great chess players can think 37 steps ahead. They are strategists. They understand things like time kills deal. They use every inch influence that they have at times to move someone to the next steps. They're willing to walk into a conference room with a whiteboard and somebody else and actually map out all the next steps, okay? Look, I'm in lots of conversations. I at times get hired to come in and have a singular conversation around a top candidate that a company's trying to get. And what do? We play chess. Okay, we bring in everything that we know about the individual, every conversation that's been had with the individual, every resource that the company has to actually map out an actual chess game with this individual. The best recruiters today play chess. If you feel like, as I'm having this conversation, you're a checkers player, you got to stop playing checkers, because you will not be the best recruiter in the industry. Okay, you got to start playing chess. Another thing that's true about the best recruiters today is that they incorporate humor, right? So why is this important? A lot of people are like, I get it, right? You insert some humor, it takes the edge off, it lightens the mood, like it helps you be more relational. It's part of like Dale Carnegie's, how to win friends and influence people, right? Look, there's more to this, right? When you insert yourself as a recruiting leader or recruiter, you're actually inserting tension. Okay, like for the most part, most people would say that they're happy where they're at, and so you show up, they immediately feel tension, right? Because most of us are trying to recruit. We're not trying to build relationships. We're not taking the tension off of the situation. We're actually inserting tension with it. And so where we increase tension, with someone, one of the best tools you have in your toolbox to actually relieve that tension is to incorporate humor, not take yourself too serious. Okay? So one of the things that this allows for is for a safety space to go build relationship, is what it does. It creates this larger area that you can actually engage with someone without having them move away from you, because the tension is what they're moving away from. And sometimes they self-insert this. This isn't you inserting it. They begin to like you. They begin to like what they hear, right? In terms of who you are as a leader. They begin to like what they hear in terms of what you have to offer as an organization, or what your larger belief model is, or what your leadership brand is, or what the company's leadership brand is, right? All those things can insert tension, and where they begin to feel tension, a lot of times you'll see people ghosting you, people moving away from you. And so incorporating humor is one of the secret tactics that the best recruiters incorporate and insert to relieve the tension and to actually get back to a place where you're building relationship. Okay, another way that I've been able to identify the best recruiters is this: their willingness to be creative in their approach to recruiting. Okay, now, like when I say this, what I'm saying is that, look, there's all kinds of tools in your toolbox that you can be creative. One of the things that I use is a tool called Snagit. Okay? And anybody can buy Snagit. It's just a simple tool that allows you to take a snippet of someone's face and add a thought bubble. Allows you to, go take a snippet of a Google map and to draw circles at where they're located and arrows at where you're located, or a circle around a Starbucks and an arrow towards it and write words on it saying, would you be willing to meet me here Thursday at 9 a.m.? I mean, so those who are willing to be creative in their approach to recruiting are I would identify as the best recruiters today. So what does this mean? You gotta build your creative muscle. How do you do this? Okay, in my early 20s, one of the things I remember I learned from Brian Tracy, which God bless my heart, in my 20s, I went to a Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy seminar. I think they were there jointly together. Might have been someone else like Les Brown. Man, can I get a big, rousing applause for those three guys? Like, those were some key influencers with Jim Rohn early in my life, early in my sales career. But I went to one of those events. There's probably 3 out of those 4 guys there, and I seriously probably spent 10% of my annual income on tape books. Okay, so for those of you that are maybe younger than 32, maybe, right? I'm guessing there. I'm 46 right now. But if you're younger than 32, you may be wondering, what in the world is a tape book? Okay, ask someone who's in their mid-40s that's into personal development, personal growth. I'll have them explain that to you. But I walked out of there with thousands and thousands of dollars of these tape books. And I would listen to them every single day, all day long when I was in the car, to where I could actually repeat them. One of the things I remember Brian Tracy coaching to was where you have problems in your business, taking 10 minutes and actually writing that problem at the top of a piece of paper, and then for 10 minutes, every idea that you have for creatively solving that problem, writing it down. And you would actually time yourself 10 minutes. Like, you would have to do this, every idea. And you would sit there. And once you get past a minute or two, man, you are fresh out of ideas, right? But what I was doing in doing that was building my creative muscle, okay? And so if you're lacking in the creative space, one of the things that I would encourage you to do is take a simple process like that, right? You want to be creative in your approach to recruiting. The question then is, how can I be creative in my approach to recruiting? What ideas could I use? And you sit there, and for however long this takes you, go 21 days, right? 21 days to incorporate a habit. For 10 minutes every single day, you spend this time generating these ideas. And what I know is this: no idea when you're doing this is a bad idea. Every idea that comes to your brain, you write it out, and you write it out, and you write it out. You don't verify and validate the ideas. You simply write them out. And what I did by doing that was I actually built my creative muscle, which allows me today to actually generate creative ideas relatively quickly and easily, okay? But the best recruiters are creative in their approach to recruiting. Okay, I'm going to leave you with the last one, and this may be the most important one. I mentioned it just very briefly early on, but the best recruiters today understand the need to have a value equation. Now, what does that mean? Okay, what is a value equation? Well, a value equation is the equation that you insert when you're recruiting to bring value to recruits that allows you to move them through your recruiting process. Okay, most people in their recruiting approach, okay, are identifying the individual, making the phone call, and asking the question, are you open to a larger opportunity? Okay, that there's no value equation there, right? And I've heard people say, well, my company offering is better than their company offering, so right, I'm bringing value to them. No, you're bringing value to yourself, right? Because most people survey out content. Most people survey out happy where they are right now. So when you show up and you're offering a better opportunity, they're not interested in the better opportunity, okay? So what you have to do is you have to understand the need to have a value equation, okay? Well, what is a value equation? Well, a value equation is where you're going to, over a longer window of time, show up consistently and bring them something of value. So let me give you an example of how we do this. And I found that bringing value typically falls into two camps, okay? But bringing value can be very simple. I come from the mortgage industry. Okay, let me give you a couple of names. There's some key influencers in the mortgage industry, right? One of my original coaches was a guy by the name of Carl White with the Mortgage Marketing Animals. Okay, Carl White does a lot of great content. Carl White's been in the industry for well over 2 decades now. Okay, so Carl White would be someone that's an influencer that delivers regular content that I could go find on YouTube or on his podcast or on his blog or on his LinkedIn profile, wherever he's delivering it today. And I could snag that content and I could begin sharing that with people if it's motivational, inspirational, if it's value oriented. Okay? There's other people, Todd Duncan. Like, I've been to multiple Todd Duncan events inside the mortgage industry. Todd Duncan puts on an annual mortgage mastery event. Another guy that delivers great content, that has a podcast, that you can find YouTube videos out there on that you could share. Another guy that may have one of the strongest leadership brands in terms of content creation in the mortgage industry is a guy by the name of Dave Savage. Dave Savage has a YouTube channel called Mortgage Coach. Mortgage Coach has over 1,400, okay? 1,400 videos where Dave's interviewing top originators, top managers, top real estate agents, and he's asking them the questions that you would always love to ask them, right? So there's value there, and I could go find those, and if it's motivational, inspirational, or value-oriented, brings value to their business, then I could share that, okay? Well, in real estate, a guy that comes to mind immediately is a guy by the name of Tom Ferry. Okay, Tom might actually have maybe the largest influence or the strongest leadership brand in the real estate community today. And so you go find these people, you identify these people, and you find content that they're creating that brings value to the person that you would want to recruit, and you share that with them. Okay? So that would fall into a camp of a content curator. A lot of people feel the pressure of, gosh, if I'm going to have this value equation where I'm bringing things that are helpful, things that are insightful, things that are value oriented, that it has to come from me. So it's more of I'm a creator. I'm a content creator. And what I say to that is that most of you don't have the time, and most of you don't have the creativity, and that's okay. You don't have to be the creator. You can be the curator. Allow somebody else to put in the hard work, and what you can do is you can go find the content, more like a journalist than anything else. Okay? Now, here's why you need a value equation. Most of the people you're going to run into are going to say, I'm not interested. I'm happy where I'm at, right? I'm going to stay here for the next 2 or 3 years. Or even if I'm unhappy, I'm going to see this situation out for the time being, right? What happens in between the time you initiate your initial contact and whenever that trigger event happens that says that they're going to move, you have to be in front of them. And you can't be in front of them constantly saying, are you willing to meet again? You can't be in front of them constantly saying, how are things going for you? You can't be in front of them asking pain agitator type questions, which is, what do you like about your company? What do you not like about your company? What do you like about your leadership? What do you not like about your leadership? What are the strengths of your company? What are the weaknesses of your company, right? Those are sales tactics. We are in an oversold environment today where sales tactics are very diminished. The reason why? The moment you start asking me those questions, guess what? I know what you're doing, right? You're trying to agitate any pain that I have. And so I'm going to immediately pull back from building relationship with you. I'm immediately going to hold my cards close to the vest, okay? Because I know what you're doing. And so in a value equation, you're not asking those questions. What you're doing is you're bringing people some things of value and saying, I came across this. I wanted to share it with you. I thought of you. Check out minute 16 because there's a great script that I came across I think you can use in your business. We're talking about that. Okay, I'm a content creator, and you could be that, right? What do? Well, I do weekly walk around videos that I put on Instagram. I do articles on LinkedIn. I invested maybe 8 hours in an article that just went on LinkedIn last week. Okay, go check that article out. I'm doing, one-off meetings with people with no strings attached where people are asking for my input. I do this weekly podcast where I drop videos on YouTube and Vimeo all the time. I get questions that are being DM'd to me on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, and I'm responding to those with my best insight. So I'm actually a content creator, okay? But you don't have to be the content creator. You can be the content curator, right? And that's just someone who's actually finding content that's of value and then passing it on. At a basic level, look, if you follow someone like a Gary Vee wrote a book called Jab, 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 Right Hook. What does that mean? It means bring value, bring value, bring value, and then you can have an ask. You can go all the way back to like the mid to early 80s. And a guy by the name of Robert Cialdini wrote a book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion. Right? It's the exact same context from the 1980s. Nothing's changed. If you follow a guy like Brian Tracy, like if you follow any of Brian Tracy's stuff from like the mid to early 80s, what you would know is Brian Tracy was always talking about the law of reciprocity. What's the law of reciprocity? Well, it means that I'm going to give you something with no strings attached, but what I know is that over a window of time that I do this, that you're going to feel inclined to actually respond in kind. Right? Because people do respond in kind. If I give value, you feel inclined to give me value. And what I'm doing is I'm creating a value equation. Okay, the value equation is this. Where you're lacking leadership and I give value with no strings attached, you will lean into my leadership. That's what we're trying to do here. And that is what the best recruiters do today. Okay, look, there's a way that God has created the universe to work, right? And it is, and so in this space here where I close with you at the end of this podcast, in this value equation, if you're willing to invest your time, if you're willing to invest your money, willing to invest your talent into people, people will then respond in kind. The article that I mentioned on LinkedIn last week, I invested my time, money, and talent into writing that article, right? The week following, I had 5 people organically asked to get on my calendar for that single article. There's a way that the universe works, and the top recruiters today understand that, they lean into that, they trust that, and they wrap their system around that. I hope I brought some value to you today. I think I close a lot of my podcasts with that. That's really my hope. There are a lot of good people listening to this podcast that need a better system. Take these tactics, lean towards them, incorporating them into your system, right? Ask yourself the question, how do I improve my system? And if you're always looking to improve your system, guess what? You're raising your ceiling for success. It will give you more capacity to have more wins. And so we go back to that and close the podcast with that. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you found value in this, share this with someone on your team. Share this with someone that's a cohort that may be also a recruiting leader, another recruiter inside your organization or outside your organization that you might be friends with. I would be honored if you did that. If you find value from time to time, some of you are awesome enough to drop me a Facebook Messenger message or a LinkedIn DM or an email. I appreciate that. Much love to my community. And until I talk to you again on the next Recruiting Conversations, be blessed and have a great week, everybody. There you have it, another podcast in the books. Thanks for listening today. And guess what? We made it through this podcast. You saw my little thumb come up on there. I flicked something off, and this time I did not turn off the video. I'm getting better at this all the time. 32 episodes into it, I'm getting better at this. Have a great week, everybody. If there's anything I can do to help you, you know how to reach me. I've got a live calendar, a book, richardnow.com. connect with me on LinkedIn, wherever you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook. I have a closed Facebook group. It is Recruiting Mastermind. I also am on Instagram. You can find me there as that Richard Milligan, THAT Richard Milligan. Would love to connect with you. And so I talk to you again on another video or on another podcast. Have a great week, everybody.